Well, welcome everybody to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. So glad you're with us to stay curious with my little Santa surfer friend here. Just to remind you, yes, July 25th, that means Christmas in July. So don't really have a program about that for you today, but we can't think about July 25th without thinking about December 25th. And hope I get some good presents for Marty this year. He's the best present giver you've ever wanted to see. And you've seen the shirt he got me on here. So hello to Marty Winkel, my co-producer. We added up. We've done 1,097 episodes of Stay Curious since March 23rd, 2020, the date dark day of the pandemic. We got Logan Cope manning the board here, our Streamlabs control in the American Space Museum studio in beautiful downtown Titusville, Florida. So glad that you're with us today. Kind of in a melancholy mood I am because I wanted to put together a program about a gentleman who passed away, Murphy Wardman, and one of his sidekicks here at the museum, Jack Martin, and going to feature them a little bit here today. And just kind of, this part of what we do here is preserve the birth of the American space age, but it's the people that we're preserving. And there's so many people I met the last 7 years that in their 80s and 90s and have passed on. And Marty's an Apollo worker. And he's one of the young ones of his group of the Grummies there. And Marty, I've met at least 5 of your wonderful Grumman engineers that have passed away. And I think you said the other day about 7 have passed away out of your 15 or so group there. I remember Cal's a great guy to remember. We talk about people a lot. Cal Mosier. He said during the early days of the program, until it was quiet. Mercury, Gemini, in the work areas, it was pretty quiet. People surfing, laid back, getting suntans when they're not working. But when the Grumman lunar module people came from New York, Long Island, it was so funny to hear him say the level of noise raised appreciably. These people are yelling at each other. They're throwing things at each other. There's these Yankees come down here and just got real noisy. And Marty's nodding over there. Yeah, good memories, Marty. And I've got some great ones with 2 of the individuals we're going to talk about today, Jack Martin and, of course, the incomparable Murphy Wardman, who meant so much to the American Space Museum. What do we have behind here? Yeah, this is where it all began on actually July 24th, 1950. A small crew of rocket engineers came from New Mexico, where they've been disassembling the V2 rocket of the German Werner von Braun and his crew that bombed Britain. And they launched the first one, bumper number 8, from a pad here. And I'll talk. Oh, Marty, I didn't print out my notes, did I? I did print my notes out. Thank you, Logan. All right, because I do need some notes on bumper here as we talk about that. Truly, the birth of the space age had its roots this week with this launch here at 10:29 a.m. on July 24th. That had been yesterday, 1950, from the Long Range Proving Ground at Cape Canaveral. It didn't even have Complex 3 is what it was called at the Air Force Station. So that wooden structure there, we'll see another picture of it there as you see the crude gantry there. But so we wanted to thank Steve Lloyd of BRPH. I know that many of you learned that company has built some of the iconic buildings around Kennedy Space Center, like the Atlantis building and the newly Gateway, as well as the Astronaut Hall of Fame right next to it. But they even build schools and other facilities around the world, radar stations and such. Steve, thank you for your time. He's a board member of ours. He elaborated a little bit about the American Space Museum, and as we're facing a very hard decision financially going on here, but we're gonna persevere and do what we can do, and thy will be done as far as this museum's concerned. So, not that we're closing or anything in the imminent future. Don't want to allude to that, but we really do need to find some corporate financial support to continue doing the mission that we've been doing for 20 years. There's the bumper launch there. You see the crowd of photographers, one of the most iconic, I tell you, photographs of the space age. This little building right here in front of me down there with the roof, that's the firing room crew and support crew is there. And of course, they didn't think about it blowing up, much safety or anything like that. It's not I don't know how close they were from it, but there it is. Bumper, they call it number 8, the first missile launch from Cape Canaveral. This was a project of the U.S. Army Ordnance Corps, and General Electric Corporation had the overall responsibility, believe it or not. The V2s used at the bumper project were modified at to accept a WAC Corporal second stage. All right, compressed air was used to separate the stages after the V2 cut off, and it was a successful launch with a lot of good data harvested from that. So we celebrate 1950. Imagine that, 74 years ago, all right, is when this iconic image was made. Start of the space age here in Florida for sure. All right, and we had a big day out at Kennedy Space Center, of course. If you were living under a rock the last few days or not a space geek and watching the show, there is the Artemis II core stage that was uploaded off of the barge in the turn basin and headed on its way into the vehicle assembly building. Thank you, Julian Leak, sharing your photograph there. Let me make that big again there. Got the iconic building in the back. I love the close-up shot, Julian, of those. They were called the SSME engines. They call them now by their number, which is what, Marty? 95, 90, 71, or I'll bet Dave Stangy's going to tell me what number it is there. If not, Julian, Steve Jacobs might, which reminds me to boot up my smart tablet here so I can talk to you all folks today. Give me just a moment to hit YouTube there. But 4 space shuttle engines being reused, okay, and sadly, they're going to be dumped in the ocean because who knows how many shuttle launches each one of these took to space on there. But so hello, Doug Forrest. Good to see you watching today. Steve Jokum says hi to Mark, Marty, Logan, and everyone here, and good best wishes for Karan Conklin. I'll give you a little report on her a little bit later. Good afternoon, Mark Usiak, Robert Laws on a Thursday evening in Dundee, Scotland at 9:14 at night. And hi, Carlton. Nice talking to you today. And Gary Gerald, good afternoon, Gary. I understand you're going to be in town tomorrow, so I'll try to get to the museum early, which means before 11 o'clock. I'm quite a night owl, and I do a lot of work at home before I come in. So, yeah, Steve Jokums, Mark Usiak, and Gary Gerald tied RS-25. That's why I love our audience, Marty. They are the most intelligent audience on YouTube, bar none, all right? And we're going to maybe promote that in a way. So, yeah, the RS-25 from 3 of our viewers. It popped up just like that, didn't it, Logan? You guys actually tied. So, all right, let me get, don't know, some particulars that we had a great talk with Ken Jacobs. Ken Joseph. 2 first names, Ken Joseph, okay. Earlier in the week, actually it was last week. You will go check him out. He is a budget guy for Artemis, all right, and particularly working with the crawler right now, budgeting the upgrades of the crawler. But Marty, he told us that the first Artemis 1 launch cost 4.6 with a B billion dollars, all right. An uncrewed launch cost $4.6 billion November. That'd be 2022. All right, coming up on 2 years from that launch. So Artemis 3, which is scheduled for a crew of 4 to go pass by the moon, not even orbit it, but just fly by it, is now scheduled no earlier than September 2025. So that's 17 months away. And you know that date's going to slip. And it will cost over $5 billion easily to launch that crewed mission to just wave at the moon from 3,000 miles away. Now, I'm not making light of it or being a little fun with it, because that's a hell of a lot of money. We're not even orbiting the moon. The next Artemis 3 is the one that's scheduled to land on the moon, which they're already talking about. Well, might have to be like a Apollo 9 in low Earth orbit, or maybe upper Earth orbit, like 50,000 miles away or something like that. But a lot of moving parts, a lot of unknowns. But one thing we do know, there is the core of the next Artemis launch with the engine strapped to it, ready to go into VAB, put vertically, have the solid rocket boosters that I believe are already there, strapped to it, and put the Orion capsule on top of it, and light that candle. Look how big it is. Look at the crew down there in the yellow safety vest. So a behemoth for sure, and a lot of intricacies. Marty, it always amazes me that as heavy as those RS-25 engines are, that they can just dangle right there and not have gravity stress on them. But, you know, everything's in there with some tight bolts and nuts, I'm sure. All right. Marty laughs at my kind of funny way of looking at things, I guess. But all right, what else are we going to talk about today before I get serious with two really tremendous rocket guys? Yeah, this popped up. Thank you, Vicki Owens. Vicki Owens keeps us up to date with the latest launches. This popped up about 2 o'clock this afternoon, where Next Spaceflight, a website, nextspaceflight.com, posted that Falcon 9 is cleared to launch. They will launch Friday night after midnight, 12:13 a.m. They're going to launch some Starlinks off Pad 40, and then at 8 minutes later, 12:21 a.m., off the pad about 3 miles away, 39A. And I posted this on Facebook, and I said, no way is what I put up there. No way, question mark. So we'll see. And then they want to launch Saturday morning in Vandenberg out in California, that was actually after, that'd be 3:40 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. They want to catch up with their constellation, but they want to come back strong. And knowing the showmanship that we all know Elon Musk is, wow, why he would not pass up the opportunity to launch 2 rockets off of the pads he rents as close together as you can. What a publicity stunt, Marty, in many ways, because if this goes off, and we're going to see some comments from y'all that are going to probably say, oh, no, they moved it back already and everything. We'll see. But Marty, it takes 9 minutes from launch to landing on a barge, so the second Starlink will launch before maybe the first one lands on the barge.
And that's why I say I don't think race safety will allow it.
Yeah. Marty doubts it, and we know this is like I said, they're posting this. Of course, we know the Falcon 9 second stage had an anomaly on July 12th. This is July 25th, 13 days ago, and it's been grounded since to conduct an investigation. The second stage, the single Merlin engine on that, something leaked, obviously, because you could see it freezing up around the foil cover of the engine. And those Starlink satellites may have been ejected before the engine blew up, or ejected shortly after. They were intact, but they've since burned up in the atmosphere. But that's Elon Musk's own money, all right? He's not risking any contractor or any money here. This is all out of his pocket. So why we think this is going to happen, Next Spaceflight says, is both SpaceX drone ships are on the East Coast, have been deployed out of Port Canaveral in support of this. And they had a static fire of a Falcon 9 a little bit after midnight Tuesday night, I guess, Wednesday morning. Hadn't really heard about that, Marty. So we'll see what happens here. Anybody know much about it? Carlton said he can't find any verification yet, but that doesn't mean that I'm an idiot and don't know what I'm talking about. No, he didn't say all of that. But thank you for checking. No verification, except here on Next Space Flight. Space Flight now, another popular site, does not have these missions on there. So thank you, Vicki Owen. She's part of our lunch bunch gang of the NASA group that I'm so privileged to attend once a month. How many humans orbiting Earth? Well, as of this week, we've got 12, okay? We've got 3 Chinese, 3 Russians, and 6 Americans. 3 of those Americans are women, all right? Ain't that cool? That being Tracy Caldwell Dyson and Jeanette Epps and Sonny Williams. And I got to see Jeanette Epps live out at the Sands History Museum as she did a live live video with the groups out at Sands celebrating the Apollo 11 moon landing. And let's see who was instrumental in that. Sean Graham was the key person that knows Jeanette, and she say, "Hey, Sean, how you doing?" As we beam her up on the screen up there. I'll show some of that tomorrow, Marty, since I don't have a solid program together for Friday. We will look at the celebration out there at the Sands. It was really a good one. So 3 women, 3 men, including Barrett there with his arms folded in lower left. He's a senior citizen now. His inbox is full of Medicare supplements. And Tracy Dyson with the MS-25 crew. She's American, but she went up with another Soyuz that already came back. And Kanyenko on the left is the most experienced space traveler of all. Over 1,100 days in space he's going to have when he comes back on 5 missions. They'll be coming back in September, as will Crew Dragon 8. All right. Then we got 3 Chinese tachionauts on their Tiangong space station. They've been up there about 2 months. Well, I want to point out about Tracy Dyson there. I was just watching her the other day. What do you mean, Mark, watching her the other day? She is the host of the NASA channel Station Life, a very, very clever show. She's such an effervescent personality. I love watching her on there. And watched her the other day talking about nutrition in space and the things they got to eat and what they eat, and showing some real cool pictures you'll never seen of astronauts eating in space like that. But she is just, she's also the lead singer, one of the lead singers for the all astronaut rock group, MarQ, which we'd love to book them on the coast here at our Shuttle Fest one year. So anyway, background on Tracy, she spent 10 years waiting to go back to space, and really enjoying it up there. Now let's get to Sonny and Butch there. They're up on the International Space Station. This is their ride home. They were supposed to stay up for 8 days, okay? This is day 50. And day 45 was what the batteries were certified for on a Starliner Boeing spacecraft. Well, they still don't know when they're coming home and how they're coming home, okay? During a teleconference today, NASA and Boeing officials said they're not ready to give a return date for Boeing Starliner as they share new updates on the maiden flight of this 3 time in space. It's the 3rd time they flew this. Calypso, the name of this spacecraft. Twice uncrewed. The mission was supposed to be 8 days, but now it's in day 50. NASA Commercial Crew Program Manager Steve Stitch, he's the PR guy on the hotspot. He started teleconference by recapping the issues that have plagued the maiden crew, said that they've isolated pretty much what they think's going on. The back part of this part right here, where my finger's disappearing, you see those 2 little white ports there, those are the thrusters. This is thrusters that have been the problem, and 5 of them malfunctioned. That part's not coming back to Earth. Once that separates before re-entry, then the heat shield's exposed below here, and they're going to land in New Mexico on a cushion of air that deploys after that heat shield does its job. So this has meant that Sonny was up in space 350 days on the space station on 2 expedition crews, but she's not been up in 10 years, and Butch spent 150 days. No, go ahead and leave that up there. 150 days. And Butch has been up there 150 before, and now they've each got an extra 50 days. You know, they're loving it. They're eating their crew members' shrimp cocktail, probably. They're sharing with it because they'll be packing more food up there when they come on the next flight up there. So I think they got the problem solved. But during the teleconference, Spectrum News, that's the local channel here, and I'm wondering if that's our friend Ron that may have posed the question. But Spectrum News asked NASA Boeing team if Starliner isn't safe to return to Earth, what options do they have? And Stitch admitted, that's the manager, the commercial crew program manager, Steve Stitch, said there is a backup option, but he did mention Boeing rival SpaceX Dragon spacecraft. All right. Duh. Instead, they're going to come back on the Dragon or the Soyuz, and the Soyuz can only have 3 people. They could probably get 6 back on a Crew Dragon. Now, they don't have their couches up there, but maybe the couches from the Boeing would transfer in there. I doubt that. But starting to get a little bit complicated here. But the crew is not stranded. They're not in danger. They're in the safety of the ISS. They can stay up there a year probably easily. I mean, they're not going to do that. And they could send up a Crew Dragon with, instead of 4 people, with 2 people, if they don't feel comfortable bringing 6 back. But I think it was rated for 6 people. So that story unfolds, but disappointingly today, in a big anticipated news conference, nothing was resolved as to when this spacecraft, as seen out the window of a Crew Dragon, is coming back. But I do love that picture. All right, let's get into what I wanted to talk about here. Yeah, Greg Pallone. Thank you, Carlton Bailey. I said Ron. Greg Pallone is the reporter that's our friend here at Spectrum News. And thank you, CB, for correcting me on that there. I'm going to move this over here. Here's the 2 gentlemen that we've lost this year. I actually was going to get a picture of them together at the docent desk I have, and I ended up doing a quick tour with a family of about 10 that's going on a cruise. So got me a little bit behind the 8 ball, but Murphy Wardman on the left and Jack Martin on the right had been friends since the late 50s when they met each other at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, working Murphy with General Dynamics. Jack Martin, I think, was working with Martin Company out of Cocoa. And both were just so much fun to be around. Every Thursday, Jack was the docent, but he wouldn't give you a tour. He'd just sit there drinking his coffee if people come up and talk to him. But he also was a docent, Marty, out at the Saturn V Center, and would sit out in front of the, underneath the Saturn V and field questions all day long. And I went out there several times and just talked to Jack and watched people talk to him. And Jack on the right there, his face would just light up with questions from people. And this is why, you know, we love our space workers here. They're just not rocket pioneers. They are national treasures that have done things that have taken our world into an area that eventually was going to go in that direction, but maybe a lot sooner than it would. Murphy on the left there, I'll share more about him because I got a lot more pictures to share with Murphy. He was not, I'm going to say more involved in the museum, but he held some executive positions here. That's his hard hat that he wore. He wears another hard hat here in a minute that was a joke of a hard hat. But Jack Martin there, they don't have many pictures of Jack. He would not come on and do a Stay Curious show. Murphy did a couple of them with us. One, I think, got interrupted by lightning or something in the back room, or we were in our early days with our production here. But a couple things about Jack was that he got to tour later on in his career. He become involved with the public relations office, and he occasionally did tours of VIPs, and he toured the Krista McAuliffe family around the Cape in 1986 during her launch on Challenger, where she lost her life. And he said that that it affected him, that he thought a lot more than he probably would have normally had she just had a normal mission. The father and the mother and the empathy he had for them. So really a kind guy. He had this deep booming voice, Jack did, but I think his favorite saying, Marty, was, "I don't know." Did you ever talk to Jack much?
No.
I'd say, Jack, what was it like, escorting, the McAuliffe family around? And he goes, I don't know. I don't remember. I'm too old. And then he'd tell you, type of thing. So he'd always kind of play dumb, but boy, he's a wealth of knowledge in there, and very important in the early days of establishing this museum and the U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation. Now, to get to Murphy a little bit more, my story, well, I'll tell one other story together with these guys. Let's see. Oh, and then I'll get to them. Let me go back here. So 7 years ago, I became a Monday docent, all right? And so excited about this museum. I knew spiritually I was meant to be here. And Karan Conklin's a big part of that. And Karan's we'll talk about her in a minute. Karan's my inspiration to be here. She kept saying, "You're coming at a good time." I moved from Appalachia, between the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Smokies, in Johnson City, Tennessee, or in Bristol, close the other side of the mountains from Asheville. Talking to her on the phone, "You're coming down at a good time, if you're going to move." And about 8 trips it took me to do it. But I walked in, finally moved down here. I'm a docent. I come in on a Thursday afternoon to look around a little bit. I see these 2 guys sitting at the docent desk that Jack sat there. And I said, "Hey, I'm Mark. How are you guys? I'm the new docent." And I go, "What's your name?" And Murphy's sitting in the chair. He looks up at me. He goes, "Oh, you don't want to talk to us." And I go, "Yeah, I do. Why wouldn't I?" He goes, and Jack goes, "Because we're the unmanned guys here. We're the satellite group, the unmanned rockets." And I'm like, "What? Of course, what difference does that make?" Well, there is kind of a big difference. But as far as people idolizing the astronauts and the people that worked on those rockets versus these heroes of our American space program that merely launched 300 communication satellites off this coast in the 60s and 70s. And by the way, put John Glenn and 3 other Mercury astronauts on that Atlas V rocket, or not Atlas V rocket, it's the Atlas II rocket. The other ones, of course, being John Glenn, then Wally Schirra, then Scott Carpenter. Scott Carpenter, did 3 orbits like Glenn. Slow down, Mark. Then Wally Schirra, and then Gordon Cooper for a day in space. But that was so funny. I'll never forget it. You don't want to talk to us. We're the unmanned part of this museum. Here's 2 other very precious people of our museum. That's Ike Rigel, who is about 95 years old, in the back. And there's Bob Giffen. They're both legends in the space industry. Ike was at the first launch of the Explorer satellite with Dr. Debus and General Medeiros on the console there. And Bob, we lost him about 3 years ago, 2 years ago maybe. And I'm not getting a return phone call from Bob's phone number there. And I knew that he'd had a stroke, and talked to him about 2 months ago. And I called him to let him know about Murphy, and still waiting to hear back. But this is where we're at here at our wonderful museum, is these living legends. I never know when I'm going to see them for the last time. and that's why we make the most of it. Both Ike wasn't really on a Stay Curious, but we've got some things recorded on YouTube of him, and Bob was several times, and Bob's a legend. He hung off the side of the Saturn V rocket's second stage and put insulation of some sort in it, like 300 feet off the ground, setting a Guinness Book of World Records that Bob got a certificate for. And there's a picture of him doing that. And we've had a couple Stay Curious programs about that program there. And love this man dearly, Marty. He had a RV that was all tricked out with a glass cockpit, and he paid an airbrush artist to put the launch of Apollo 11 on one side, moon landing on the other, and I think on the rear end he had the lunar module and the command module. Do you remember much about Bob?
No, I did see that RV one time.
Yeah, he was real proud of that, but he had the most hellacious pineapple garden I've ever seen. All right, one of the first ones I ever saw, of course, down here. But it was a pyramid. And the perfect way to grow pineapple is those tendrils that come out when they and then propagate. And man, some of the most delicious pineapple I've ever had. And those of you that have not eaten Florida pineapple, they're usually smaller. All right, as I take pretty small and smaller than the grocery store variety, but the insides are kind of a reddish hue to them. Marty, get on that UCAC family microphone and talk pineapple to me.
We're not going to talk pineapple, but we do have Ike's book. It's well worth reading. Ike was a World War II veteran.
Oh, yes.
Fought at Iwo Jima, and I think Guadalcanal also. It's a great book if anybody wants to pick it up next time you're here.
It's called Ike, and Ike Rigel, Rigel. His wife, Catherine, is still alive. She's approaching 100 years old. Ike lived to be 99, and was a real center during the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, because he was in the launch. He was like the third in command behind Rocco Petrone of launching that. So God bless you. I hope to hear from you, Bob, and Ike also. We need to just do a show about Ike, maybe Marty, or a couple more of these together. Kind of did this at the last minute because we put the obituary of Murphy on yesterday, or the day before yesterday, on our Facebook page. So there's Murphy Wardman. Murphy, a Marine. Hoorah to you Marines, Semper Fi out there. Murphy was kind of a bad luck type of person. He laughed about it. By that I mean he had some experiences that you wish you would only have once, and they kept happening over and over. For example, he had a heart attack on a Alaskan cruise, I believe. And if I get some facts wrong, family, I don't have my notes on this, but I think he had a heart attack on an Alaskan cruise, and that was a big ordeal of getting him out of that. Of course, he survived it. He got run over in the driveway here and had his leg almost amputated off by one of the volunteers accidentally running over him and almost killing him. It was actually our godfather, Charlie Mars, that did it. Excuse me. And well, he's got the scars to prove that. I think that's one on his knee there. And just kind of, if something was going to happen to somebody, that you needed to buy traveler's insurance, it would be Murphy. Therefore, and he was known for some of these little faux pas. Oh, I forgot he had these sayings, Murphyisms, okay, that would be regular sayings backwards. And that's what I forgot about. Like he would say, instead of saying a pig and a poke, he'd say, well, that's a poke and a pig. Or instead of a horse of a different color, he'd say, well, every horse has a different color. Kind of like a Yogi Berra, Marty, with his little sayings out there. And we'll put this together and do a little better job on this, because because I just thought, I want to share a little about this man's wonderful life. So at the Space Center, this was something we have in our Cape Canaveral gallery that he was largely responsible for getting for us. That we have this in there, Murphy Wardman. All right, and a dark cloud and lightning over him there. Okay, as a character out there at the space pad. We also have back there that's the hat that he's wearing in that picture. Of course, I have a green screen. This hat's only 60 years old or more, and there's his name on there. And General Dynamics was the Convair division, launched those rockets out there. They built those engines in there. So Murphy has another hat back there that he would show off, and it has. And one day I said, Murphy, you have another hat back there, but it doesn't have the suspender part for your head in there. That it's missing. And he said, it's supposed to, Mark. And I said, what? So he told me the story that launching rockets in the 60s was about every third one blew up. All right, they blew them up all the time, but then they would learn and understand what was going on, and they wouldn't blow them up anymore. So they would, or at least that part wouldn't fail again, or that system wouldn't fail. It'd be the next one down the line. So he said, things are tense. You have a bunch of scrubs. It's hot. You don't understand. No air conditioning. An armadillo might come into the building. You might see a snake outside. If this was the rural Florida. And so to have a break to people, he said, I had this hat without the suspension. And when I put it on in front of everybody, like he is there, everyone would start laughing. It looks like Beetle Bailey for you fans of the comic strip out there. Beetle, that's the name of the comic strip. Yeah, Beetle Bailey, about the Marines. I don't even know if they do that anymore. And then I'd pass it around, he'd say. And everyone that put the hat on would look funny because it covered their ears or their eyes, or a couple guys that just barely fit on their big heads. And you get the picture. And this is the type of manager he was. He was the lead electrical engineer out there for Convair. So a lot of great stories of Murphy. There he is with Karan. Back of him with Karan. That's at Main Street, where they moved, the last place they moved before they moved in here. Little taste of what that's like. There's Karan. That was probably 10 years ago. One of our staff members went out and saw Karan at the hospital. She'd been in the hospital last week, not so much with cancer issues, but other things going on in her body, maybe because of the cancer treatment. But she's in good spirits and ready to fight this thing, and someday looking forward to coming back here at the museum. So please keep Karan in your prayers, and I'm going to get her home address, so if y'all want to send her something, I'll put that up tomorrow. I haven't made a meme of that, so I'll let you know about that. So there's a picture I personally wanted to have with Murphy back there. Like I said, from that first day I met him, we hit it off. He always was always in my corner, encouraging me to get out there in the community and find some money and try to talk to people about what he's was so passionate about. All this equipment in this room there, he helped acquire that. That's our sequencer. 2 sequencers are in the back there. The one behind my head was built in 1960, the last one, and I did a launch on that, and I think Dave Stange's singing a launch on that. I know the UCEC brothers have. We do a little 3-minute program there, but Murphy, gonna miss you a lot. Particularly when Thursdays roll around there, and but he lived to age 92. He'd been 93 in September. Born in Kentucky, but spent most of his life here, and he's surrounded by a tremendous family. His wife. And kids and grandkids, very frequent visitors here at the American Space Museum. To segue to that just for a few minutes here, as I see are the Shuttles of July. I wanted to give a shout out to the first female commander to command a spaceship. Of course, that's Eileen Collins, the first woman to pilot a spaceship. And both of her commands are in the month of July. Lower left-hand corner there, STS-93, the one we celebrate, that was launched on, get my shuttles of July here. Where is that? That was launched on, yesterday is what I want to say, the 24th. Is pretty sure when that's launched on actually on the 23rd it was launched. Today's the 25th. The Gamma Ray Observatory. That was a close call for sure because one of the engines went out and they almost had to go into one of the transoceanic abort landing sites
Transatlantic.
Pardon me?
Transatlantic.
Transoceanic abort landing site. The TAL sites they call them. And then the return to flight she commanded 114 in July. Launched on July 26th, 2005 was that famous mission in 2005. And then that was actually grounded because more foam had fallen off, and STS-121 up there was launched. The only July 4th mission launch was actually a second return to flight a year after 114. So we got 51F, which was the Cola Wars, to launch with our friend J.D. Bartow on there, who helped us out at Shuttlefest 3, and then 46 with Andy Allen, our friend of the museum, piloting that on the last day of the month to wind up the shuttles of the month. But wanted to just show a couple pictures of Eileen Collins. There she is with Charlie Mars and Murphy. All right, Murphy Wardman. Back in the day when they got her handprints. That's what's right there. And I'm going to, because I drug them out, I'm going to do this. These things are so heavy. You can't believe how heavy they are. They're about 50 pounds. This is Eileen Collins' handprints. All right. That I hold up there. That we have maybe the only place in the world that has her handprints. Okay. And so proud of that. There she is in a NASA promotional poster to Think Safety. Are you ready for us to go? And as you're going down the launch process system offices, Marty, to go to lunch break or the bathroom, you see that on the wall, you're going, she's got her daughter with her. She's telling us, do our job. And if I die, my daughter's going to miss me. And that daughter now's been to college, I believe. I forget her name, but we'll find that out one day here. But I love that poster, and I wish I could find it to get Eileen to autograph it. Well, our good friend and world traveler Jonathan Ward wrote a beautiful book on Colonel Eileen Collins called "Through the Glass Ceiling to the Stars." That photo, I believe, is an Annie Leibovitz photograph, if you know that one-time Rolling Stone photographer. And I have not read the book. I need to, Marty. That's the next one I'm going to plunge into.
Bridget.
Huh?
Bridget.
Bridget. That's right. I remember the name. Bridget. Did you look it up?
Yeah.
You sure? Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah, Bridget's her daughter name there. And she must be 25 or 30 years old there. But yeah. Jonathan told me who she was there. I forgot. Thank you. But so I need to read this book. But you know what? I've been around her quite a bit, and what a wonderful open person. She loves talking about you. Here's her handprints in our museum, there next to Kathy Sullivan's, and then we have, of course, Sally Rides in our women's gallery. We're so fond of. 77 women have been to space out of the 617 female pioneers. Well, there I am about a year before, about 2016, talking to Eileen Collins. All right, 8 years later, here I'm talking about her on this show. Never knew that I'd ever see her again, and I've been around her several times. She's not been in our museum. She's really on the A list because of the success of the book. But Jonathan Ward will bring her in here for us one time. She does want to come to the museum, as I met her at the Hyatt Place. One day going up to the taking the elevator up to see the launch, 5th floor, and going down, the elevator stopped at 3 and she got off. And Mark Usiak, you were with me, and we had Dana Lavoisier, the manager of the hotel, there with us. And so we go like, we know who you are, and well, who are you? And, oh yeah, we started talking. She goes, yeah, I've heard about your museum, and then talking to Mark for a while, and quite frankly, so friendly and wanting to talk about anything. We weren't talking about our missions. Well, I think we were talking more about Artemis going up, and in the book with Jonathan, talking a lot about that. And I had an appointment somewhere else, and I said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, I gotta go. I'm gonna be about 5 minutes late if I leave now." So that's how cool she is. She's just really a wonderful person. Hope that you've met her and gotten an autograph from her, and you'll know what I mean. But she is all business behind an aircraft. She flew those giant C-130s, was her expertise. And we've heard over and over that she landed the space shuttle probably on the dime closer than any of the other commanders or pilots. Really, really known for that. Shuttles of the month of July we'll talk about there. So, hope that you've enjoyed how we do present the shuttle era there as we get to see 114 return to flight was such a big deal on this month after the Columbia tragedy. And she was the woman that spearheaded that back in 2005, a little over 2 years after the tragedy. So, Marty, thank you for chiming in there. Logan, thank you for a good Streamlabs production there today. Hope that you've all joined this look at some space news as well as some of our rocket hero friends here that we do call national treasures. Is there? I put Jack and Murphy back up there. Going to miss you guys on Thursdays. Big loss here at our museum to really miss Murphy. And all we can say to that is Ad Astra, guys. And God bless you and all that you've stood for. And one thing we promise here at the American Space Museum is that the memories of space workers like Murphy Wardman and Jack Martin will live on through our good works here. So until tomorrow, when we'll do another episode of Stay Curious, I'm Marquette saying we can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.